Whether you're buying property or whether you're raising kids, regardless of the challenge in front of you, you can sit down in a corner and have a pity party, or you can step up and go, all right, I've got to learn some new stuff here.
Jodie Cooper, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me. We look at the two biggest issues coming to the election. It's cost of living and it's housing. There's a feeling of like helplessness that can kind of come out of that as well, isn't there?
You're right. I'm noticing people that I always thought of as incredibly resilient. It's actually, cracks at the seams.
People that even when they're trying to buy their home, one of the big feelings that comes up is a feeling of regret. I wish I'd bought before COVID because house prices have now doubled.
Whether it's regret or frustration or despair or disappointment, any of those negative emotions have a tendency to keep us playing the small game.
If you kind of take regret and resentment being in the past tense and we move future tense and we go, right, how do you build some resilience?
Resilience is learning to take care of your own well-being so that you are more consistently in a good place and making better decisions more often.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. If you've been tuning in for a long time, you know that I truly believe the best way to move the needle when it comes to investing in property is investing in yourself. With that means you got to do some deep work, a lot of inward self-reflection that comes on the journey because I feel when you start to buy property, it's really going to hold up a mirror to some of the greatest insecurities and some of the greatest fears you have. And we both, if you're listening, you're tuning, naturally you have an affiliation to going, yes, I want to take action. Yes, I want to get into the property market, but also there is a chasm that you need to overcome, which is about what happens if. And we're going to unpack all of that today. On this journey, I've had to do a lot of work on myself. I'm still a work in progress. I say, come on the journey with me. I'm telling all our clients, I'm on the journey just like you guys are. But where I've probably done a lot of work last year is working on myself. And over the years, I would mention this, Bernie and I have done, say Tony Robbins, for example, we've done a lot of personal development that has got us to this stage, a lot of business coaching as well. But last year, I was very fortunate to come across Jodie Cooper, who is what I'd call my personal coach. In every sense of the word, Jodie has made a massive impact, continues to, because like I said, still a work in progress. Jodie Cooper, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm excited to be here. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest.
In the north, we're doing this conversation at your place with your dog sitting at our feet and having some very hard conversations. Look, it's had it all. It's had smiles, there's been tears, there's been wins, there's been progress. And I feel like us having a chat probably came at a really good time because I'll drop something on you going, I want to do this. And you're the first place you go, but why? Tell me more about this decision.
Yeah.
And
let's dig deeper.
That's exactly it. And also I think there's a lot of not only self-clarity, but there's also alignment between myself and Bernadette. And why you haven't worked with Bernie necessarily, you're very much looking through that lens and going, but what does this mean for your relationship? What does this mean for your family?
Yeah.
And it's all good to make decisions, but there's also ripple effects that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited. So if you're tuning in and you're unfamiliar, yes, this is a slight tangent from bringing in a buyer's agent or a depreciation person. But
yeah, it's not that.
It's okay. And I want to be very clear. But the episode that I did about buying the hot spot and the real estate between your ears, we're doubling down on this. And I can't tell you how many clients that have listened to that podcast, people that have reached out to saying that had an impact or it moved the needle for them. I want to double down this. And we've had people like Jamin Fraser, a coach. We've had my brother on who's done stuff in restaurants, for example. We've had Keith Abraham is the guy I'm thinking of. So we're brought in people that are kind of larger than life that are helping you play a bigger game. So if I'm putting that as the context of today, come with me on the journey because I'm no doubt Joe's going to challenge you, but also feel going to galvanize a lot of the why you want to do things as we unpack this conversation. So Joe, thank you very much. Now, for those that aren't listening, do you want to give us a quick intro? I mean, I've seen yourself and your doggy and your family. You've been in the game for 20 years, coaching, seen it all. I think there's things that have maybe changed over time in the 20 years of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably stayed the same, which is we're all wrestling with this idea of kind of do more, be more, get more, own more.
Yeah. And I guess 20 years I've seen it really has changed. The dynamics of what a busy professional is today is totally different to what it was 20 years ago. The expectations, the complexities, the uncertainty, the average person is dealing with so much more inside their head, let alone in reality, in the real world as well. And so, in the last 20 years, it really has been a game changer. And in my own journey, I'm pretty lucky I get to work from home, working with professionals like yourself, but I also go out and work with organisations. So help teams become more confident, more positive, more engaged in what they do, which is pretty cool, helping people reach their potential, basically.
Yeah. And I guess and I don't like to use the word challenge, but there's, like you said, there's a reality of what today's life is versus maybe what it has been in the past. We look at the two biggest issues coming to the election. It's cost of living and it's housing. And at an organization level, I can do a lot of work with, say, the team. You've come into our team and worked with our team. So I can do a lot of work on the field, but it's what's happening off the field that I think can translate to what's happening in the workplaces where people are going, I'm productive at work, but I'm still facing the same challenges with cost of living. I'm still facing the same challenges. I can't get into the property market, for example. I'm stuck. And there's a feeling of like helplessness that can kind of come out of that as well, isn't there?
It is. And even people that I've known over the years that have been incredibly robust, you're right, that sense of feeling a little bit helpless or a little bit overwhelmed. I'm noticing people that I always thought of as incredibly resilient. It's actually, cracks at the seams. It's getting harder. It's getting harder to stay positive. It's getting harder to be engaged. It's getting harder to be a consistently high performer in this environment.
Yeah. And when I hear that, me, I'm a red rag to a bull. So someone's hard.
You're like, get him on.
Yeah. I love hard. I think that's the challenge. And there's that saying, it's like life is hard. Choose your level of hard, for example. And it can sound to the wrong person. That can sound tone deaf or lack empathy. I would definitely kind of own that. But on the same note, hey man, it's all things equal. We're all going through it. Yeah. It's how do you separate yourself from the rest of the pack? That this pack's going, hey, it's hard and woe is me. And this pack's going, yeah, it's hard, but I'm going to do something to stake the deck in my favor. Game
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, right? And that's, talking about mindset. It's not the challenge. It's how you approach it. It's how you think about it. Because whether you're buying property or whether you're raising kids, I know you've got kids as well, regardless of the challenge in front of you, you can sit down in a corner and have a pity party, or you can step up and go, all right, I got to learn some new stuff here. I got to figure out where my resources are. I got to reassess what my strengths are. Yeah. And I got to start learning to play to them. And we can all do that. But once we get the woe is me pity party going on, that gets really hard.
And with that, to me, misery loves company. So when you say woe is me, that's that ripple effect. And if you're listening, how many times you've heard people in your circle going, it's so hard to buy property. I'll never get into the property market. And that's the stuff that gets media headlines. That's the stuff that gets 20,000 views on YouTube, versus our little, which is how to enable people to get moving forward.
Yeah.
The stuff that really trends is it takes 20 years to save for a deposit. Well, no, it doesn't. But that woe is me rhetoric really resonates with a lot of people.
Maybe it does for some people.
Yeah.
But that's not the truth for everybody. And it certainly doesn't have to be your truth.
Love it.
And that's that's the game changer, right? There's truth in most things, but you have to decide where your truth is and where you want to walk forward from that.
Cool. Thanks very much. I want to start off with a piece that I feel like a lot of investors, and I think people are even when they're trying to buy their home, one of the big feelings that comes up is a feeling of regret. So let me frame this. So I wish I bought before COVID because house prices have now doubled. I wish I bought my home before, in the last few years because now rents have increased significantly and we're priced out of the market that we do want to live. There's a sense of regret that comes in. Then you talked about a bit of helplessness that starts to seep in, pity party, where it's like, I'll never get in. I've missed the boat, for example. So this feeling of regret, people can have this as like a ball and chain.
Yeah.
How do you, I see that feeling, but then how do you to shift that feeling as well?
Yeah. So there's a couple of pieces to it. And I guess I'd always start with self-compassion. Like realistically, it sucks that you didn't make that decision or you weren't in that position to jump into the market at a point. Like that's annoying and it sucks. And there's a reality to that, right?
Yeah.
So let's not assume that we have to be happy about that. That's just going to make it all worse. So the first thing is accepting where you're at. Right? Yeah. It's not an ideal situation. Yeah. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel disappointed, overwhelmed. You're going to experience regret. That's a normal human emotion. What we do with that, though, is a game changer, right? So I can feel those things and experience those things, But if I stay focused on that, what happens, and what we know from positive psychology, there's a real robust science to this. When I experience a negative emotion, I'm more likely to stay stuck. My focus narrows and I'm less likely to engage, learn, or grow. And so that regret actually keeps me stuck. And whether it's regret or frustration or despair or disappointment, any of those negative emotions have a tendency to keep us playing a small game. And so if we're able to shift our focus and start to go, what if? And I start to play that, if I did start to get into the property market now, if I did create a 5-year plan, if I did become really resourceful and start to leverage some of the things I know, where could that take me? And so what we're doing is basically realigning where we're focusing. Instead of focusing just on what went wrong or what we don't have, starting to focus on, where are the opportunities? What could we create? And so much of my work, probably the bulk of my work really, is helping people to be discerning about where their focus is.
Yeah.
Because if we can hear ourselves, and most people, we could delve into the whole thoughts and emotions stuff, but most people aren't taught or aren't even aware of the impact of their own thoughts and emotions, but they actually drive all of our behaviors, and they're inherent in all of our relationships. And so if we can start to tune into what's going on for us in terms of what we're thinking and how that's shaping how we show up in our lives, then we can start to be discerning about where we focus. And that's a game changer.
Yeah. I think the exercise that we did, which was, how many thoughts we having during the day? And I'm like, but what about this? And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And they're like clouds. They come in and you can kind of and acknowledge the thought, but be able to let it go pretty quickly without dwelling on it. That's probably where we've talked about that downward spiral, which is you cling on to a thought and it really, it can take you on that downward spiral, and you just kind of let it percolate far too long, lingers. Yeah. And that's where that feeling of despair maybe comes in and drags you down, as opposed to, okay, how do I acknowledge it, see it, feel it, and then be able to move on as well, which I tell you now.
I'm laughing with you, Aaron.
It is easy. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm doing the work. I want everyone else to come on the journey and do the work as well, because I keep saying this is where the game is won and lost. The game and won and lost is in mindset.
Yeah.
It's not in how much you've got in the bank account, because there's so many people that have a 30% LVR in their home that aren't taking the opportunities. There's some people that have the borrowing capacity that aren't taking the opportunities. It's like how we stack in the deck for you as a listener to take opportunities, but not live with a sense of regret.
Yeah.
Or despair, like you mentioned.
There's a really cool a story. I think it's an old Indian story, actually. And it talks about the 2 arrows, right? So whenever something bad in your life happens, there's 2 arrows. The first arrow is inevitable, right? So that arrow flies towards you and it hits you and it's going to land. It's going to be painful, right? So you can't avoid that. The second arrow, though, is you doubling down on that. You being cranky that you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time. You being disappointed that you didn't see the arrow coming. You being regretful that you're in this position. And then it's almost like you're poking that second arrow and wiggling it around. And that second arrow is all of the suffering that you create from overthinking. And regret's a beautiful example of that, because the more we regret something, the more we stay stuck in that anger or frustration or despair, the less likely we're able to open up and see where the opportunities are.
Let me give you some context where particularly for this type of investor work, I hear this, which is we bought investment property and there's an issue that's come up. Let's call it a hot water or a roofing issue. And maybe the tenant, has damaged the property to some extent. And then the investing is hard. Pick the wrong tenant. I hate property. I hate tenants. The property manager should have owned this. Now the costs are blowing out. And you're right. It's almost like you get that arrow and it's letting it fester and you're creating more scar tissue.
It's making it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you listen to that, it's okay. It's happened.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it without?
And also acknowledging that it sucks, right? Yeah. There's a reality that it sucks when your water system bursts, when, your tenants skip out, when you've got hard work and something happens to your roof. Like, all of those things are the harsh reality of this game.
Yeah.
And if you're in this game, you know that. And so don't be sideswiped by it. Understand that it's part of the makeup. Like, if you play football, you're going to get tackled. That's the reality. Don't lie down there and cry about it. Get up, pick up the ball, figure out what you got to do next, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really that mindset piece of, it's not that bad things may or may not happen to you. It's a surety. They are going to happen. How you deal with them, then that defines what happens next for you.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So then that then feeds into, I've got regrets, and then now I'm angry about that, and we'll talk about, kind of doubling down this feeling, and I've got some resentment that's building, and maybe that's resentment towards, hey, we had the opportunity, but your partner wasn't on board, or I had the opportunity, but I didn't have the cash because I had the bank of mum and dad, like my friends do, for example. They got inheritance, and then you may be playing a little bit of comparison here, but really simmering below the surface is this feeling of resentment, and I've lost opportunity as well. How does someone talk specifically as a couple? Because I probably see this a fair amount, which is we're not aligned to what we're trying to do as a couple financially. And you look at statistics around relationship breakdown, one of the biggest issues that we've got is financial reasons. So money plays a critical part. Very few probably podcasts talk about investing as a couple or money issues. Yep. I'd rather talk about hotspots, but no one actually talks about the realities
of convincing your partner.
Convincing, getting them on board. There's negative cash flow that comes in, or there's an issue that comes up with a tenant, and they don't believe in it. Whereas the couples that I have that do extremely well, one person plays offense, one person plays defense, in the sense, okay, one person's going to own this relationship with the buyer's agent, the mortgage broker, the accountant, for example. One person's behind the scenes in an admin perspective, or just going, I entrust you, you run point with this, for example, and this is a joint decision that we're making.
Yeah.
So how do we first of all, how do we deal with resentment? And then second is, how do we turn that around?
Yeah. I think a big part of it is to recognize that you're doing it. So most people that are feeling resentful or angry, they're actually not consciously aware that they're even stuck in that emotion. So just being mindfully aware of, hang on, I'm feeling really angry right now. I'm feeling really pissed off. I'm feeling really overwhelmed or frustrated or resentful. So the first step is recognizing that that's where you are. And staying stuck in that, there's an opportunity cost. Right? So you can keep that anger, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you emotionally. It's going to cost you financially. It's going to cost you relationships in every way, shape, or form, right? And so the moving through that is starting to realign your focus. And this is hard. So you and I have talked about this a lot, but our brain has a natural negativity bias. We're more likely to pay 3 times as much attention to a negative emotion or event than we do to a positive. And so when something bad happens, your brain instantly jumps onto that. And our brain's job is to try to make meaning of things, right? So our brain doesn't just look at it. Our brain goes to town on it, pulling it apart, unraveling it, and almost reveling in the muck that is the bad thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
And so when we understand that our brain does this thing, because it's just a hangover from our days of evolution, when our brain focuses on the negative and jumps in and dives into it, we have to recognize that it's doing that thing again. And then gently realign ourselves to focus on what else is going on here. Because when our brain is focused on the negatives, it actually distorts and generalizes and disregards the positives. So while the negative thing is happening, there are actually this whole array of positive things that are outside your current awareness. And so if you can become more aware of where your brain is focusing and then gently realign it to the positives. And this is not easy, right?
This takes a lot of work.
This is a lifetime practice. But when you can do that, it's a game changer. It really is. And bad things can happen, but you can still feel like it's been a good day. And that's cool.
Yeah. We'll speak about it. You can't build a house of 2 different blueprints. As a couple, you can't build a financial future off the back of 2 different blueprints. You won't have alignment. You won't have connection there as well. How do we? Because this is a hard conversation to have as a couple when we're putting money on the table. I can tell you right now, couple conversations happen when the kids go down to bed. It's like 8:30 night. I'm like, it's busted, and now we need to have a deep and meaningful around this.
Yeah.
How do we set this conversation up? Because what happens is typically with even with these podcasts, one person is listening and then expecting their partner to go, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
You should be buying this property.
Yeah.
You're 50 episodes deep and they're just going, what are you talking about? You haven't, this is just you drop this on me. Is this some shiny object? And their instinct is to protect the partner from making a bad decision, right? I almost feel that that's the handbrake. I've spoken that constantly versus when I've been able to get on the same page and go, right, here's the state of play. These are the numbers. What are we doing and what are our next moves and how do we both get heard? How do we both feel included? Rather than it becoming a win-lose outcome, has become a win-win outcome as well. How do you suggest couples have this conversation?
It's it's a really great question, and I think a lot of it comes back to values, and that's some deep work, right? Values is knowing what's most important to you and who you want to be in the way that you live your life. Now, in modern society, if you think about the model be, do, have, in modern society, most people want to skip the first two bits and just get to the having, right? And so we're talking about rounding out and going, you can have whatever you want, but you've got to be prepared to do the things that's going to be required to get that. And to do that, in order to do those things, you have to be a certain sort of person. Now, most people don't have that conversation at home, right? Who do you want to be? That's heavy.
It's heavy, but it's also like, how do you facilitate that conversation at home going, what are you talking about, mate? Do more, be more.
Yeah.
More. It's like, but we'll be more when we have more properties.
Yeah.
Be more secure when we have more properties. We'll be financially free when we have more properties or we have more income, for example. And it's, having done a lot of this deep work, to flip that around and go, but I have enough already, for example, or I am enough already with or without this giant property portfolio is easier said than done.
It is, absolutely. And you touched on it then, but that idea of contentment, we make really good decisions when we're in a positive place. Generally, humans make pretty poor decisions when they're anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, or regretful. And so it's getting yourself and your partner into a place where you're looking forward to something that's positive, to actually creating something that's really valuable for both of you and getting on the same page. And, in terms of stage of life as well, talking to a young couple compared to a young family, compared to somebody at retirement age, those things are going to be really different when we think about what's most important for you. And it's being true to yourself. And I think sometimes we can fall into the trap of modern society of feeling like, we need to, whatever it is, we need a fancy holiday or we need a bigger boat in order to be successful. But your values, knowing who you are and what the way in which you want to live, that's your only measure of success. Yeah. That is literally the only measure of success. And if you live your values, if you show up every day and regardless of what they are, right? But if you're living your values, then you're going to die a happy man. If you're living somebody else's values, that's real hard. And when we think about partners, most partners tend to share a lot of values, and that's often a common thing. But in the mess of life and chaos of child rearing and whatnot, so I can see you shaking. It's heavy.
You think about the season of life that we were in previously, like 2 small babies, where when not everyone's self-employed with their partner, for example, and they're not the time for making big decisions.
Yeah.
We joked with a lot of our friends in our circle going through that. These aren't the years making big career moves, big decisions.
Yeah.
We pushed the boundary on a couple of things and we saw the impact of that. Like that can cause financial friction. It causes friction in the family, for example. It's where your focus is going and that can take you off the ball, which is what's truly important. Because how many times we've said this, your kids are that age for that time and then, it happens really quickly. Life can happen very quickly and that then almost can create an emotion of, well, I've got to do it now.
Yeah.
And someone like me that lacks tempo, energy, and every idea is a good idea and now is the right time. Well, yes, that was the best time. To temper that energy feels like this is slowing me down and I need to keep moving fast and have all that energy come at us when we see headlines, people that have bought 5 properties in 2 years, for example, 10 properties in 2 years, it's like, why isn't this happening to me? I'm being slowed down.
Yeah.
They're getting ahead of me. And it could be the season in life. Like as you mentioned there, young income, so double income, no kids.
Yeah.
Sweet spot. Like you're for real there and you're listening. But as much as you think risk, it's the exact opposite. You've got all the time, you're young, you've got the market can be forgiving from a time perspective. You've probably got discretionary income, you're spending a little, you've probably got fleek and rent in to spend a little bit. But if you lay down those roots right now, in 10, 15 years, where we're at in life, you'll be the beneficiary making those good decisions when you're young. I didn't. I spent my money on cars and holidays, which is cool. I don't mind that.
I had a lot of fun along the way.
And I think that's part of regret going, I should have been able to invest when I was in my 20s. Yeah, mate, but I had really nice cars and I went on holidays.
Yeah.
I can't regret that. Those decisions have been made and that's done. I can't live in the past. I met awesome people, friends, holidays, memories off the back of that. I lost my license even off a beautiful car. Can't change that. But what it's done is now then put me into this season in life where I'm like, now I've got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I've got the means and the ability. Now it's up to me to take the shot. Versus I can't take the shot then because it's in the past and I didn't even know those opportunities existed even as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, part of this is about self-compassion, right? Giving yourself the grace to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And make the decisions at the time that were right for you. And that's, I think we tend not to give ourselves that grace. Most people are overly self-critical and that just keeps us stuck in that negative loop.
Yeah. Thanks very much. So we've touched on regret. We've touched on resentment. The next big R that I want to tackle is, and this word gets thrown around a little bit, so I'm very cautious to bring it up without it being given some context. So the next one's building out some resilience. So if you kind of take regret and resentment being in the past tense and we move future tense and we go, right, how do you build some resilience?
Yeah.
Because you said even before, it's not a matter of if things go wrong, it's a matter of when things go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. It's like going to go wrong.
Welcome to adulting in the real world. How would you define resilience?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get a stock standard answer from me. You know that, right? Okay. So I play a lot in this space. My background in positive psychology, it really is a study of well-being. Okay. What we know about resilience is when you feel good, you'll make good choices consistently. When you feel bad, you tend to make bad choices. So resilience isn't a matter of getting hit by a Mack truck 15 times and still standing up again. That's not resilience. Resilience is learning to take care of your own well-being so that you are more consistently in a good place and making better decisions more often. And that's a game changer, right? So there's layers of mindset to that. And there's layers of self-care. One of the biggest pieces in terms of resilience is your relationships. And we don't think about that a lot. So back, it would have been probably 17 years ago when I was first starting my company. And I remember sitting on my dad's lounge and I was in tears and I'm like, this is done. I can't do this. It's too hard. And my dad said, you are not going to give up. And I was ready to give up. I was totally throwing in the towel and he was not going to let me. And in that moment, it wasn't any of the other stuff that I had going on. It was my relationship with my father that completely changed the outcome for me. And he provided the resilience that in that moment I didn't have. So we underestimate the impact of our really good relationships. And I think, in terms of resilience, it's this beautiful culmination of you feeling good more often and making sure that you're taking care of yourself, but also nurturing the relationships around you because they are what's going to get you through when it's tough.
Yeah, nicely said. Thanks much. Yeah, I tend to come off the back of that, particularly in a financial context, is what I'd call it wealth being. Yeah. So, and you said about decision making. I look at it, a state of wallet equals state of mind. And when you have some dollars in the bank, for example, it's like, okay, there's a sleep at night factor. On a good night's sleep, I know I've got buffers there, or I know that's coming in, for example, or being business cash flow or there's property cash flow. Versus when it's in the red, you're not making very good decisions.
Yeah, that's everything gets scary, right?
Whether you're redlining or it's in the red, it comes from a place of lack, scarcity, versus when you can make decisions from a place of abundance or being clear-minded. I've seen it. You make far better decisions versus very knee-jerk, very rash, very short-term decision as well. And the wealth being part to me is when you're financially dialed in. I know it. Like when there's been money in the bank for the family versus not.
Yeah,
it just changes the entire dynamic. And you see families that grow up without money, the lack, for example. There's no security, there's no stability, for example. And it's how do we translate that into our lives to go, well, how much is enough that you need and run your own race, make your own decisions, but how do we have that little bit of wealth thing as well?
And I think that it's so much of this is mindset, right? The idea of your success being your own benchmark for success, not somebody else's. I did some work with Denise Duffield-Thomas. You guys probably know her work. And one of the things she talked about is recognizing moments in your life where you feel rich. And so they might not they might not be whatever, buying a very expensive dress. Generally, I shop at an op shop because, I like conscious consuming. Yeah. But one of the things that I did when I walk down the beach, I walk down the beach each morning and I pick up rubbish. And in my head, I'm like, this is who I want to be. This is rich for me because I have time to do this.
Yeah.
It's not how much I have in terms of financial, stocks, bonds, or property market. I have the time and capacity to actually make my beach a better place. And that makes me feel rich. And that's where that mindset and contentment, like you talk about, from that place, I can do anything. But if I look at my bank account or I look at, investments and start comparing myself to the people next door, there's a good chance it's not going to add up. And I'm going to feel like the poor cousin. And then I start making really bad decisions and I get stuck in that negativity spiral. It's a hard way out.
Yeah. It's in today's environment where we can easily compete and easily compare. We see headlines of people with their portfolios, for example, investor spotlights. It was a surprise. We've asked so many clients to come on to share their journey and they just don't want to. One, they're a little bit embarrassed, almost embarrassed by their success, but two, they're a little bit private in the sense they don't want to share it or feel like they're big noting themselves and their journey.
Yeah.
And it's an endearing quality. I think I like to reframe that by going, but hey, success leaves clues and you can help other people on their journey. So it still hasn't changed their mind. They said, oh, shit, what they've done. That's why I respect that. Because it's that peer-to-peer learning, which is, they've done it, they can do it, which
it's possible.
It is possible, which is probably why I think that closed community that we've built, which is the Property Accelerator, has really resonated because people like a little bit more of that intimacy. So if you're listening and you lack the community around you or you lack accountability for what your goals are, particularly in property, and you can't really share that with your friends or family without feeling judged for it, drop us a message. Hit us up, Property Accelerator, DM, send us an email, for example. We're kicking off a number of groups. The first group that we had is full, which is fantastic. We're kicking off our second and third groups as well very shortly. And the idea is we want to get investors that are in a closed group, not a Facebook group. This is no advice given from people. It's just, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I want to achieve. And we're going to celebrate each other's wins and successes. So that sounds like you and you want to be plugged into that. Just hit us up and we'll send you the details for the accelerator, which I am so excited about. It's given me a spring in my step because this is an idea that I've had for some time, and to see it come to fruition, like everything in life, it's that journey of going and taking it from something to nothing, and now people are jumping on board. There is a proof of concept there as well, so I'm excited. Yeah. So if you've come on the journey, we've gone regret, resentment, get to resilience. Now what I want to do is a place of where we get some clarity. So the outcomes here would be, how do we get clear? How do I get clear on what I want? How do we get clear on what we want? How do I get clear on the outcome that I'm shooting for? And that could change over time, because what I shot for initially a few years ago, you've got there, it's like, hey, okay, perfect, celebrate it, recognize it. The job, I've still got room to push, or I can still grow, or dial it back if I want to as well. So you mentioned values. So I'm coming up with a few points here, but how do we get clarity, and how do we then talk about alignment to our goals or our values, for example?
Yeah, I think knowing what's important, as a family and the different stages we talked about, is really getting clear on who do we want to be at this stage in our lives? You know, my partner and I, we traveled for 3 years, and we traveled around Australia, and it was
an amazing story, by the way.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
We went around Australia, caravanning.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, when you talk about freedom,
well, that's it.
if I speak to, I just want the ability to
make that decision, right? And so for us, we made a very conscious decision in that time of our life that we didn't want to be banking money. We wanted to take initially just a year out. COVID happened, it turned into 3, but we actually wanted to really prioritize our family time.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I were totally on the same page with that. And again, in terms of values, we ended up landing in Tasmania, and I got this incredible opportunity. I built this a community wellbeing initiative, and we got it funded. It was $500,000 project in this teeny tiny community, right? And after being there for 12 months and getting it off the ground, people were shocked that I left. Like, people were really, that they said to me, Jodie, this is your baby. How can you walk away from it? And somebody else was put in my position at council, but I could walk away from it because I knew what my values were. I knew that right now my career was not a priority for me. My family was. And so for us to spend time together while our kids were that age, I'm so glad we did. Now, Aaron, my kids are 12 and 14. I do not want to be in the caravan with them anymore.
That's, that ship has sailed.
That ship sailed. But knowing what our values were at that time, being really, really clear, it made those decision points super easy. Right. And so sitting down and having some of those robust conversations, and even if it's a glass of wine at the end of the day, occasionally just asking your partner what's really important to you. What's lighting you up at the moment? What are you enjoying or appreciating? Or where do you imagine we could go in the next 12 months? Those are the sorts of questions. Now, if your partner's anything like mine, you might get a bit of a blank look and, chuckle another log on the fire, look at the stars sort of impression. I think part of this relational piece is knowing that generally one person is going to be a bit of a driver, and one person, you call it a handbrake, I call it a husband, whatever, different terms. One person's generally going to be a lot more excited about this stuff. And whether it's traveling around Australia in a caravan or getting another investment property, just appreciating that sometimes you've got to plant the seed, and that might take a while to cultivate. And it's being patient with your partner and knowing that they've got a different perspective of the world than you do, and giving them time to come at it in their own way.
Yeah.
And that's, it's tricky.
I'm glad you said it's tricky. It's easier said than done when you've got people, let's say, for example, your caravan, and it's like, that is something that you'd love to do, you really wanted to do, burning desire. When you had kids, you saw this, you envisioned this as a family trip. And your husband's like, it needed a lot of convincing. For some people, that'll take the wind out of their sails and just go throw their hands up going, that's it. They're not on board from day one.
Yeah.
You're killing my dreams and my ambitions. And if I have to sell this idea to you, then it's not worth it.
Hard. Yeah. So just for context, I reckon it took me about 6 years to get my husband on board.
So persistence is the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is slow to come to things. But in all seriousness, it's the long game, right? If you know that this is what you want and it's important, it's the long game.
Will they respond to that level of conviction then? Do you think, like, if you go, hey, this really means a lot to me? And otherwise, if you're willing to give up on your dream, they're like, oh, well, that wasn't that important to them.
Yeah. And I think, I dropped a bit of another opportunity on my family recently, and I want to do another trip to Asia, which would probably be, somewhere between 3 and 6 months.
Yeah, nice.
And, 12 and 14-year-olds, they're like, oh, but I'll miss this and I won't have this and I can't take. And so.
So 3 or 6 months out of your life. Yeah.
No, I know, right?
You're going to want to do this on your own.
Yeah. And so the way that I've come about this is just started to slowly plant seeds of what's possible. Imagine if, like, what would this look like? How would it feel to? And so just gently planting those seeds. Now, at the same token, and this is kind of relevant right now, at the same token, I've also been pretty clear both with them and myself that if they don't want to come along, then I'm going to make this happen for me.
Nice one.
Does that make sense? So it's like, I really want you to be on this page because I love they're cool little people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got a bunch of friends that, I'd love to ride around Cambodia on a bike. That's going to be cool. So that's going to happen. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year.
Yeah.
It's a long game, right?
It is. It's a long game. And it's what I've heard this called like with or without you energy. Like I'm with or without you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say like it's, binary. It's win, lose. It's like, how do we all, if you want to do it and you've got enough conviction, like you said, then it's like, you're going to make it happen. You've got to choose, you go jump on board or I'm doing it without you and I'm going to have a bloody good time doing it. So I can't wait to hear about it. The other one is, so we've got clarity. I want to get to a point that people have confidence. And what I mean by that is, you tread your own path. We don't, and that's the big thing in our investor community that we're building out. There's no comparison. There's no competition, for example.
Yeah.
And there's an element of like, hey, with that confidence comes the ability to celebrate the success. Like you're sitting there talking about having that glass of wine, looking up the stars in Tassie and going, geez, we made it.
This is it. Yeah.
And it's ability just to stop. I think you and I have spoken about this. I have a very poor ability to celebrate success because I feel like I'll never make it. Yes. I think I'm getting far better at it.
Yeah.
Far better at, because in mortgage broking context, every minute of every day, I could be writing loans. I could be seeing more people. I could be trying to outpace my peers, buy more property. This game will never end. And something that I've put my hand up and struggle with going, but I'm capable of more. I want more. I can do more. And from a context of family, that comes at a loss. We talk about win lose.
Yeah.
Me winning in business will come at a loss for connection with family, relationship with Bernie, for example, work on my health. Because then what we do is we unpack my values, but I truly value health.
Yeah.
And being physically fit. I value achievement as well. And sometimes the balance of contentment and achievement can be at loggerheads as well.
Yeah, for sure.
If you struggle with that, and a lot of our clients are A+ personalities that want to keep achieving, keep buying, keep scaling, there is a sense of tempering that energy going, but with that comes celebrating successes as well.
Yeah. I guess there's two layers to it. One is kind of, again, the economic theory of opportunity cost, right? If you're putting all your time and energy into, mortgage broking, then something else has got to give. And so there's that harsh reality of, as much as we like to think that we can have it all, we can't. And if you're not discerning, then you'll get swept along on a journey, and that journey is often in competition with somebody else. And when we are in that comparing game, we end up losing. We always end up losing. Whether you're comparing up or you're comparing down, if you're worried about what somebody else has got compared to you, you still lose. Okay, so it's really being clear on what's important to me and how am I going to walk that path, right? And when we think about celebrating your wins, and I know this has been, you and I have laughed about this a bit, it is really being able to stop and recognize that, there are good things. And this comes back to the focus that we talked about at the start, right? Because if you're only focused on that never-ending to-do list, you're always going to feel like a failure. It doesn't matter how many Lamborghinis you own. If you want 4, but you've already got 3, still feel like a failure. And so being able to breed that, that mindset of contentment and abundance is about recognizing that I have enough, I am enough. And whatever comes from here, I get to grow, and that's fun. That's cool. I can play that game. And I know you love that game, right?
Oh, that's the thrill. To me, that's the thrill of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be exciting and it can be fun, but it doesn't have to define you. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
So be defined on what you're already doing well and what you already have, because that stuff's real and it's cool. The rest, the chase, while it's a fun game, often it can be smoke and mirrors because it could all go to shit.
Totally.
Right? And if we're not enjoying the good things that we have, it doesn't matter how much we accumulate, then we'll never be satisfied or happy.
Yeah, I see this a lot with our investor clients, again, pushing the boundaries. You think about how many, and Rach might be helping me bring up the numbers here. You look at how many people own investment properties, for example, and I think it's like 70-80% own one. And then we get all the way down to like the top 1% of investors get past 6 properties. We're talking about not 1% of Australians, we're talking about 1% of property investors as well. So if you're really trying, I'll include kind of the graphic to the investor numbers. I mean, that's data that's going back quite a few years. I think that might be skewed now. But even then, I mean, I might just move a few percentage points, but even say the top 5% of property investors, that is an upper echelon of people. We hear that high income earners over $500,000. There's so many clients like that are earning those type of dollars. Now, you can talk about diminished returns after a certain level of income, that you're not more happy, as dollars don't equal more happiness, more properties don't equal more happiness. And you could say, look, I've got more security. If you can translate that more security into going, this is what it means for my family. Yeah. And therefore, one of my values is security or stability or in a cycle, for example, and you find a way to then celebrate that then may close the loop for you instead of kind of this open loop of chasing and chasing. Yeah. It's going, hang on, look how much we've done and achieved. Our job isn't done yet, but as this time right now, look at that rainbow, but you've got 3 rainbows in the 4th. Okay, now we're choosing what color at this point. Yeah. And that's the success that comes with it. Yeah. So with clarity, with confidence, and the last one I'd say is connection. And to me, how do the connection can be a number of things. How do I keep that connection with my partner, for example? Because how many times you've kind of grown together, going through some tough times that can make or break a couple, and you get to the other side, and you go, right, we've achieved this. How do we get that connection together? The next one is, how do I connect with my team, that they obviously care about me? We're talking about, your buyer's agent, your broker, your planner, your accountant, for example. You don't feel like a cog in the wheel. And then the last one is, celebrate and connect to your sense of success as well. Yeah, cool. Look, I think so much of life, not investing and not mindset, I think so much of life is actually about connection, right? When we feel like we have people that care about us, everything gets better. So when things are good, they're amplified because we've got these close social relationships. When things are bad, we can navigate them because we've got close social relationships. And so most people don't think about that. And I think that can get lost in translation of just having a partner that's supportive. It's not that. It's having somebody in your world that genuinely cares about you as a person. And now, how do you get that? That's like the $1 million question, right? It's about caring about other people genuinely as a person. Sure. And so ways to do that, particularly as a couple, where some of the data is a little bit horrifying, but it talks about we are less civil and less polite to our partner than we are to a stranger. Well, they say, I'm the rudest to our people that are close to us. It's going to attend our funeral as well. Yeah. 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 And so, part of this, again, it's that negativity bias playing out, right? Is we focus on the negative in our partners. We focus on the negative in our kids. We focus on the negative in our staff. Yeah. When you can check yourself and know that your brain's doing that thing again, and then gently reorient to go, actually, my son does leave his towel in the bathroom often, but he's a really good kid. Yeah. Like, he's actually quite thoughtful, and he's kind, like he shows up. Yeah. And so when we can reorient our focus within our relationships, we invest much more time and energy in, what I believe the things that matter most, which is the human beings in our life. Yeah, cool. Jodie, I want to say thank you very much. I know that we talk a lot about this behind closed doors. It's these very personal conversations I've been very lucky to have with Jodie in one-on-one coaching. So I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing a lot of your knowledge, your IP, and a lot of your framework around positive psychology. You no doubt made an impact on me, which then has a ripple effect. Like I said, guys, I'm a work in progress. Everyone around will attest to that. But I think just being even dialed in to go, but I want to, like you said, be more. Like, I want to be more. Yes, I want to have more, and that's going to be the outcome. That's going to no doubt happen. But it's just, hey, if I can be more, show up better. Yeah. And there are times I say, like, there's new levels, new devils. Like, if I get to a point that I'm breaking through, going, I thought this would be easier. In fact, it's gotten harder. It's like, geez, I just continue to be challenged. Yeah. But if you can have someone that you can lean on, like a Jodie, for example, or a supportive partner, or someone that you can confide in just to let it out a little bit and go, yeah, hey, mate, I see you, I feel you. It's huge. Just pick yourself up and one of the things we know in the business is oxytocin, which is called the cuddle hormone. Yeah. Oxytocin, one of the biggest things it does is it cuts through cortisol and adrenaline. So when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, if you've got a kid or a dog, go and give it a cuddle. Like, give it a tickle, have a laugh. It's just a game changer in terms of dealing with stress. You get that cut through really quickly with good, positive social relationships. Awesome. Thank you very much. If you want to find out more about Jodie, jodiecooper.com.au website, hit up Jodie if you want to have a chat. For example, Jodie's not here to farm or fish for business. It's not that intention at all. It's very much to let you guys in on what I'm doing. So I always say I'm going to pop the hood on my own network, for example, where I can open doors. And I truly will go back to what I said at the start. This game is won and lost in the mindset. I can tell you how to buy 5, 8, 10, 15 properties. You will not grow into pain. The negative cash flow that comes with holding a portfolio, managing 8 to 10 to 15 tenants, property managers, loans, for example, the admin that comes with that, the cost that comes out trusts or SMSFs, you will not grow into that level of pain if you cannot believe that, one, that you're worthy of achieving that level of success. Two, if you're not prepared to strap yourself in and go, there will be some hard times. Rates will go up, rates will come down, things will happen out of your control. For example, properties will come up and need maintenance. We're talking about properties, physical property that no doubt if, but when things happen. So how do we get our investors thinking long-term, thinking this is part for the course and this is going to happen? We create resilient investors, and resilient investors become successful investors. And that's the order and stack that I'm trying to follow. I'm not trying to do hotspots around the country. I'm not trying to show numbers around lending. We're really going deep into the psychology of investing. And I genuinely hope this has helped you on your journey. If it has, guys, I love when the comments, I love when the emails and texts come in. So hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Pass this on to someone that you know that could do with like a bit of a leg up when it comes to their own journey around property investing as well. And if you've got your partner that isn't dialed in, by all means share this and maybe just grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. And this might facilitate that conversation to go, how do we get on the same page financially? And if it starts that conversation from my perspective, mission accomplished. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Mm.